Let's be honest here. $20 million is more money than these people have ever dreamed of.
Oh, see, now that pisses me off. So before you come back here with another lame-ass offer, I want you to think real hard about what your spine is worth, Mr. Walker. Or what you might expect someone to pay you for your uterus, Miss Sanchez. Then you take out your calculator and you multiply that number by 100. Anything less than that is a waste of our time.
All right, now when most people think of lawsuit settlements, they think of movie scenes like that one from Erin Brockovich and the big bucks that follow, with a verdict, if you remember, going back a few years before that. And there's certainly examples where, in fact, it happens. Now, before he became a U.S. Senator and later the world's worst husband, John Edwards, he made his name and his fortune with big dollar settlements, including that famous case, a $25 million settlement to the family of a girl that was severely maimed by a pool drain here. Or you can take the case of Admiral Lima, beaten, sodomized by police officers in Brooklyn back in '97. He settled his suit with the city for a little under $9 million. But not all cases end that way. Not even all police brutality cases are settled equally. The police beating of Ehud Halevi back in 2012, caught there on camera, it led to a settlement this week. But that beating, which included pepper spraying and consistent pummeling when he put up no defense, was for a total of $100,000. Now, 2 cops beat him after he resisted arrest, saying he wouldn't leave the room in the back of a Crown Heights synagogue that he had been allowed in before. The beating, as you say, obviously caught on camera. Okay, so help me out here, Bill. Where is, I think the general public assumes, hey, my God, you catch something on video, let alone you got a clear wrong here or a clear overreaction and real damage is sustained, there's going to be a huge payout. Where is reality and where is something different? Where does the line start and stop?
Well, when you settle a case, I mean, neither side really walks away completely happy. I mean, basically, you know, the plaintiff always feels he should have gotten more and the defendant always feels they should have paid less. But what it really comes down to is each of the lawyers has got to make an honest assessment as to the strengths and weaknesses of their case. And as Doug will tell you, you know, in a case involving personal injury, you've got to have definable injuries. So even though the video shows that the police were beating this guy up, what the video doesn't show is what the nature and extent of his injuries are. Were they life-threatening? Did he lose an eye? You know, did he suffer a permanent impairment of a bodily organ? You know, those are the real issues that come to play. And there's also a question as to whether or not he did anything to provoke the police officers. You know, the video shows a part of it. Did he institute or initiate the attack on the police officers? So,
well, the officers were disciplined, that they overreacted in the case here. But you know, Doug, I know when a guy gets exonerated, serves 15, 20 years for a crime he never committed, I'm always surprised, but at least I understand there's guidelines attached to annually what they put his loss of either earning power or what each year of his life was worth. Now, you and I may not like what the number is, but I understand there's a formula. When somebody's either maimed terribly or somebody's either harmed by people in authority of a formal organization, are there firmer guidelines where one can go, how big the settlement can be? Forget about, and I know you'll explain to me how it works with insurance companies, but in terms of caps, is it clear or is it kind of we're figuring out as we go along?
Well, we don't have caps in New York especially. I mean, there are jurisdictions that do have caps, but we don't. You know, that's argument to the jury. Pain and suffering. It's what a reasonable person hopefully values, you know, the use of your limbs and you know, pain and suffering, mental, physical. But there are restrictions as far as what an injury is worth in a jurisdiction. You know, sometimes you'll hear of a verdict of $100 million, but the reality is if you followed that case long enough, that would be reduced to something that's sustainable in that jurisdiction. But as far as
who
appellate courts, the appellate courts will look at similar cases, similar injuries, and they'll say, you know what, that's high, we're going to reduce it. And sometimes, I mean, it's possible for them to raise it, but they very rarely do. It's usually reduced. So you don't hear about that. You'll hear about the $20 million cup of coffee at McDonald's, but you won't hear ultimately what the person received.
And isn't the tougher truth also, if somebody wants to drag it out and they want to keep appealing the verdict here, they can. And if your clients, if the victims ever want to see money, at least in the shorter period, that's part of the equation here in terms of the settlement, right?
Absolutely. Like in this case here, where it's $100,000, listen, his attorney may have been saying, that's ridiculous, we should be a lot more money, but you offer somebody $100,000. The client runs the show. If they say, no, I want that money, I don't want to go to trial, I don't want this drag out, I want it to end now, Well, that's it. I mean, it's their call, not the lawyer's call.
You know, in the Abner Louima case, don't forget that the injuries there were horrific. You had a police officer who basically took a nightstick and shoved it up his rectum, and there was permanent damage. So $8.7 million was not unreasonable then. It probably would be considered low today.
But a lot of that also had to do that was the front page story of every daily in this city, and this, you know, for how many days, and it was the talk shows at nights, and there was political pressures, and there was racial tensions that were heated up about this, and the line of it's Giuliani time, later retracted, but still, they had to make this thing go away. So even if the cops wanted to fight the argument in principle, I don't know how they could have, they had to because other forces pushed them in this. Jimmy, what is the toughest calculation when you're making? What they can afford, what the insurance will cover, or is it more, you know, my client's stomach for how long he or she will wait until they'll see the money?
All of that goes into the mix. I mean, clearly you had as deep a pocket as you could imagine here in the city.
Sure.
What I'm wondering is perhaps what we're not told. I'm sitting and reading here that the cops were cleared.
Yeah.
And notwithstanding clearing the cops, they decided to settle. It almost sounds like the reporting is that the $100,000 was a gift. So, you know, I'm wondering whether there's something we don't know. But clearly, how deep is the pocket? How bad are the injuries? How long my client wants to go? And what his likelihood of success is or isn't?
And Doug, finally, and we're going to break, but the perception out there of the audience that if you sue, everybody wants to settle to make it go away couldn't be farther from the truth, right?
Absolutely farthest thing from the truth. That's why when you hire a lawyer, you hire somebody that's been through it and hopefully knows what they're doing. Because people are not giving away money. Everything's a fight. Everything is a fight.
And not that anyone feels sorry for attorneys, but not just the client, but the attorneys don't see a penny of it, and they're out of pocket for all the expenses until finally a settlement and a check comes in, right?
Usually, that's the way it is.
Okay. Up next, call it a One World Trade Center takeover. At least 6 people have been busted for trespassing at the site. And do their punishments, though, fit the crime? We'll tell you what they could be looking at here and what is justice when it comes to this, both preventative and also punitive for what they did. Stay with us.